Hi guys, it's been a while since I've done a makeup video because I've been focusing on my sewing videos a lot, but I recently finished a cosplay for a character from One Piece called Carrot, which involved a lot of new makeup techniques, and I've been experimenting with that and I wanted to show you the final look that I've come up with for her. So this look involves a couple techniques that I've not really gotten to experiment with. I'll be doing white face painting for this, as well as some other face painting stuff like making a little bunny nose and that kind of thing. White face paint is actually really hard because it can shear out so easily or look uneven, and you really have to know what you're doing. The last time I did this I accidentally messed up and it had already been powdered, so I just had to wash the whole thing off and start over again. So hopefully that doesn't happen again today, but I'm going to walk you through my process and show you how I turn into Carrot. The wig that I'm wearing isn't exceptionally close to the skin, so I don't need to have my hair sit quite as flat. So I am just putting my hair in 2 braids today, and then they're gonna wrap around the base of my skull at the back, at the bottom, because it's a curly bob look, so it won't really matter. Alright. If you don't look at least a little ridiculous, I don't think you're doing it right, but next we're gonna put on our wig cap. I'm using a skin colored one today because the wig is light colored and I don't want it showing through. And you can just tuck your ends in. Next up is skincare. I know that sounds kind of funny for a makeup video, but I actually really highly recommend moisturizing if you're going to be using grease paint for your face. I am using Mehron's Clown White Lite for this look. It's got an old sticker on it, but you can get the gist of it. And this is apparently a European style grease paint. It's lighter than the original. My best friend Kylie uses the original and that stuff is like super thick and kind of sticky and stiff. This is a little bit softer, honestly it feels a little bit greasier, but basically because it is based on an oil instead of like a water or an alcohol, it actually agrees with your skin if it's moisturized a lot better, and you'll end up with like less weird patches where it's like skipping or absorbing funny. And also because you have to powder the absolute crap out of your face after you've used this, so having a good moisture base is really helpful for that because it keeps your skin from just absolutely drying out. So I use just a moisturizer. I don't always use an eye cream, but I've been using an eye cream recently because I've had some dryness around my eyes and that helps. And then since I'm going to be going out and doing a photo shoot today, I am also going to be putting on some sunscreen. Very important. Always put on sunscreen if you can. So I am starting with the eye cream because it'll absorb better. There's nothing underneath it. And honestly, I highly recommend eye cream specifically if you're going to a convention. I know 2020, no conventions, probably not gonna have any conventions in 2021 until the fall at the earliest if we're lucky. But once conventions start coming back around, especially if you bake your under eye or your eyelid or anything like that, or you're doing really heavy makeup multiple days in a row, an eye cream can absolutely save your life. I was at Katsucon, I think, 2 years ago, and I actually developed a scaly patch on my eyelid from where I was just going so hard all the time with my makeup, and it was just drying me out. It was actually pretty hard to work with, so I highly recommend if you're doing a lot of makeup, if you're doing a lot of stuff with powder, if you're doing multiple days back to back, that you really focus on making sure that your skin is moisturized because it will fight you otherwise. I'm gonna go in with my sunscreen. This is just an extra little layer of moisture and helps seal things in. I personally really recommend Korean and Japanese sunscreens. Their formulations are totally different than the US. The sunscreen goes on pretty dewy, but honestly dries down to a really nice silky satin finish and doesn't feel greasy at all. It just feels like a moisturizer, which is really nice. I know I am quite shiny at the moment, but that's okay because we're gonna cover everything with grease paint anyways, so it doesn't really matter. I'm playing a very dangerous game by wearing this cardigan while I do this because I am going to have to pour out copious amounts of white face setting powder in a while. I have now moisturized and my sunscreen's on. It's all more or less absorbed. I'm gonna start putting on some primers. For this, I'm thinking I'm gonna keep it pretty basic. I'm gonna do a little bit of the Mineral Veil primer from Hourglass, and I might do a little bit of one of the pore filling primers just in here for me. I like grease paint because it functions more like a traditional foundation than anything else. And especially, I really like the Clown White Lite. It's been a bit of a learning process because it is so slick and kind of slippery when you're first working with it. But once you get it figured out, I personally really like it a lot. And you don't have to beat the ever-loving crap out of your face trying to smooth it out like you do with Clown White regular. Okay. Now that that's all on my face, I'm going to start going in with my Clown White. I recommend using a kind of dense, maybe a little bit fluffy brush with this. It doesn't matter if it's streaky because we're going to go in with the sponge in a little bit to even it out. But for now, I recommend using a brush kind of like this, something that's pretty dense. You're going to get a good amount of product pickup because that's really what you're trying to do here, is just getting the maximum amount of product onto your face. This is what the product looks like. You can't really tell because it's white, but essentially you just rub your brush in it and it picks it up. If you decide to use this, I will warn you, you are not going to be able to get it out with regular soap from your brush. You are going to want to use like Dawn dish detergent, something that has a grease fighter in it, to help break it up because it is not going to come out otherwise. And then I'm just going to start going in on my face. There's really no rhyme or reason to how to do this. You just kind of go for it. I know I look completely insane right now. Bear with it. Trust the process. Around the eyes, I don't use the grease paint itself. I actually use the NYX Jumbo Eye Pencil in Milk. I think this stuff is a little bit better staying power around the eye area, and it feels less weird getting this in my waterline than it does the grease paint. And you can't really tell too much right now because it's very bright outside and that's kind of throwing the color palette off. And my camera might actually have a blur filter on it. I'm not quite sure about that. I have not checked. But what we're going to do is, now that this is all on here kind of haphazardly, we are going to take our sponge and very, very gently just blend everything together. All this involves is just putting your sponge on top of the skin very lightly and bouncing it just to blend all of the edges together. And it can slightly affect the coverage the grease paint gives you. It can shear it out just the tiniest bit, but we're going to be putting literal white powder on top of it. So it's not like it's that big of a loss. The finish is worth it because this would be nigh impossible without. And I do recommend you get a sponge that has the kind of traditional beauty blender sponge style with this tip to it, kind of egg-shaped. It makes blending the small areas a lot easier. I tried a non-beauty blender shaped sponge at one point, and it actually ended up taking off some of the face paint around my nose, which I had already powdered, so then the whole thing was ruined, simply because the sponge was not ergonomically shaped for the face. So we are going to bake our entire face, basically. This involves a ton of powder. So what you're gonna want is you're gonna want a white face powder. I'm using Ben Nice Super White. This stuff's pretty good. I like it pretty well. I mean, it's a white powder. I don't recommend getting one of the ones from the drugstore like I got during the last holiday, I think, from Makeup Revolution. They had like a ghost powder. That stuff is crap. It doesn't do anything. It's like super non-pigmented. It more gives you like a white cast than like white coverage. I do use it in like a pinch if I need to, but it is night and day different from this stuff. So I am just putting a ton of it on a little palette, and then I'm going to take a powder puff and just absolutely pack as much of this powder onto the powder puff as I can and then pat it onto my face. And with the powder puff, I generally try and avoid any of the areas that have got tight creases because if a part of the powder puff that doesn't have powder on it hits your face, it will take off the grease paint. I mentioned this in past makeup videos about touch testing, which is where you feel your face to see if there's anywhere that's sticky still. That's really important for this, but you want to do it very lightly, because if you touch somewhere that's still wet, it will pick up on your fingers. So we're leaving my neck normal for now, and we're gonna use the water activated face paint for that, because you don't have to worry about it being streaky as much. You don't have to worry about like coverage or anything like that. If your neck looks white, it's gonna look white, and it, in my opinion, comes off a little bit less on clothes than this. The cape I'm using has collar, so, and then we're gonna take our sponge, smooth out around the eyes one more time. I'm gonna look very silly for a second because I'm gonna try and not open my eyes too much and cause creasing again. This is a very drying process, y'all. If you've got like real dry skin, like eczema, or you just got like a sunburn or something, I don't recommend this. And then this is the other really important part. If you pick it up all the way around 360 on the tip and you squish it into the inner corners. And by doing that, you're getting coverage all the way around and you're not worrying about accidentally picking up anything there. And if you've got a little bit of creasing under your eye, like right next to the waterline, that's okay. You're gonna put eyeshadow there anyways. It's not like people are really gonna notice. Don't be too hard on yourself. I'm 24 and I've got under eye creasing. That's about it. It's very important, I emphasize again, that you are patting all of this. You should not be dragging any of this. If you drag, you are just absolutely gonna wreck this base, and it's not gonna be a good look. And once it's powdered, if you mess something up, that's game over. You gotta wash the whole thing off and do it again. You cannot fix this stuff once it's powdered and you mess something up. You can't go back in with another layer and double it up. It's just gonna look bad. We're gonna leave that to bake for just a second. I don't know if that actually does anything, but it makes me feel better. And you know, if I can get a little bit extra of the moisture out of the base, I feel like it's probably a good thing. Also, if you've got white face paint on like this, it will make your teeth look super yellow. My teeth are pretty average. I mean, they're like not like blue white, but they're like normal for an average person. I look like a serial killer. These are horrifying with the white face paint on. So unless you're covering like the lower part of your face in another color, I really recommend smiling with your mouth closed. Not a big toothy smile unless you're going for something scary, in which case go for it. Live your best life. Okay, we're gonna move on to my eyes. So this is the only tricky part because like I said, you don't want to sweep too much because it'll pick up the white pigment. But you kind of have to be able to blend your eyeshadows. So this is something where you just want to use a very light hand and go very slowly. And if you notice anything going weird, you try and fix it before you move on. So I realized when I first started doing this, I don't have a matte white eyeshadow. I've got almost matte and I've got almost white, but I don't have a matte white. So instead, I am taking this shimmery white eyeshadow here and I'm just making my base out of that because it's what I have. So the goal here is to just build up another opaque layer of white so that you can then blend stuff onto it and not have to worry about accidentally picking up the pigment on the underside too much. And I'm just using a fluffy brush for this. So now we're gonna use a cool toned brown shade. I'm gonna go in with this one right here and this one right here, just to help carve out the eye a little bit. When it comes to face painting of any kind, whether you're white or blue or red or purple or whatever, you do wanna go back in and contour a little bit, simply because you are super washed out with face paint of any kind, and all of your contours and all of your details are just lost to the ether. White is just a little bit tricky because how do you contour white grays, I guess, but I don't have gray. Again, another thing I am lacking. I have so many eyeshadows and yet no grays. So instead, I'm just going to use some very cool toned browns and hope for the best. We're gonna go in with a slightly darker brown now. Still keeping it in the cool family, very light hand again. I'm gonna go back in with my finger and a little bit more of that white shimmery eyeshadow. Blend things out a little bit. I'm going to add just a little bit more darkness to the outer part of my eye. I'm going to be using a smaller blending brush so it stays a little bit more contained. And I am going to be very, very ginger with how much I put on there, just because I really don't want this to be too much. I should probably have y'all zoomed in for this. Right, and then I'm going back in with my fluffier brush and blending that out a bit more just to help it. Next, I am going to attempt to highlight the inner corner of my eye. I have a literal white highlighter from Becca, literally white. So I am going to take a little bit of this, slap that on my inner corners. I more or less finished the base for my eyeshadow, and my face has been baking for a while. So I'm going to take a fluffy brush like this. It's already got some powder in it. And I'm just going to stamp across my face like this, kicking up the extra powder. You don't want to sweep it off because that's going to mess up the coverage. You just want to stamp it on like this, and that'll kick up any extra powder that isn't literally stuck to the skin. If you can avoid breathing in while you do this, I do recommend that, because you probably don't want to be breathing in this powder. I think it has talc in it. Let's do some blush. So the character has fur, so technically you wouldn't be able to see blush, but also she's very cute and I don't want to look like a monster. It's a good way to kind of portray her like kind of youthful cuteness. So I'm doing it anyways. I am taking a fluffy brush, and this is just a like blush brush, pretty dense. And I am taking this blush right here, and this is a Too Faced blush. I think it's Lovesick. It was a smaller size of it. And this stuff is pretty pigmented, so I'm just gonna stamp my brush into it, pick up a good amount, tap off any extra. And then I am actually gonna start up a little bit higher right through here. Start where I want the most concentration, and then tap it on like this. This will help with the blending a little bit too. And then I am going to take a very light contouring powder, very scary, and I'm going to try and contour just a tiny amount because again, my face doesn't really have any shape because of the white face paint. So I am going to pick up on a big fluffy brush, just the tiniest little bit, and I'm going to start right under where my blush is. And I am trying to blend this just a little bit. My hope is that if any coverage comes off, it won't be that noticeable, because you really have to blend this stuff, right? And then I am going to take that fluffy blending brush, and I am going to hope and pray that I'm able to get all of the eyeshadow off of it that I was using previously. And I'm going to take the lightest, closest to gray color I can find, and very, very, very slightly try and contour a little bit of my nose. I don't want to contour all the way down because I'm going to be painting a little rabbit nose on my face right here. So I don't want it to be like, oh, human nose with a little pink nose painted onto it. But I also do want to still have my brow line, as it were. I'm going to take some highlighting powder, and I'm just going to take a little tapered brush and sweep a little bit of that onto my cheeks. So I don't use face paint for this part. I'm actually going to use a liquid lipstick. I think that they've got plenty good staying power, and a liquid lipstick dries down a little bit better, so you don't have to worry about it like not setting and then you bumping it or something. So I'm going to use the same color lipstick I use for my Princess Peach lips. I'm just going to put some of that on my little palette here, and using a paintbrush, I'm going to paint on the shape. I'm going to use a very tiny little paintbrush, and the shape is basically you dip down in the middle and then go over the nostrils and then make a V at the bottom. I'm gonna start with the outline. Start with the lowest point, because you can always make it taller, but you can't make it any lower. And then I am going to go around my nostrils. I can't talk too much during this, we're all screwed up. And unfortunately with this, you do kind of have to get into your nostrils while you're painting. So on top of this, we're just going to add a little bit of pink just to help set it a tiny bit. We don't want to go overboard, and we certainly don't want to end up with pink on all the white parts of our face. And just tap a little bit of that on to help it stay in place. I am using Essence Waterproof liquid eyeliner. It's a felt tip pen. It's like $2. It's really great. If you like the Stila felt tip pen, this is a pretty good dupe for that. I actually have 2 of them to give them breaks because I find that felt tips can get a little bit clogged. So if you wait for one of them to kind of rehydrate itself while you're using the other, that's pretty good. So what I do with this is I actually draw the line slightly lower here. I don't go too low. I'm not trying to do some Gary look for this. I'm really just drawing it slightly lower at the bottom to give the eyes a bigger illusion. I've done this a couple times. It's gone pretty well. I don't know what it's going to turn out like today, so y'all are going to bear witness to either my triumph or my failure. I kind of use the creases on the bottoms of my eye as like a guide. So I'll use the trajectory of one of the creases that's already there. So then I'm going to do my top line. Then we're gonna connect the under eye wing to the over eye. And breathe a little bit now. Still working on it. Eyelashes are white, so it looks a little funny still, but we are going to take a very thin angled brush and take a little bit of a mid-tone brown and just kind of go under these black lines on the bottom to help blend them out a little bit. Need something with a little bit more blending power, I think. So throwing my things. So I'm going to take a small round blending brush and with a light brown go in. So I'm going to brush through my eyelashes with a spoolie to hopefully shake off a little bit of the powder that has taken up residence on my eyelashes so that when I put on the mascara, it's less disastrous. And then I am using Essence Lash Princess mascara in the False Effect waterproof version. This stuff is fine. I honestly think a lot of mascaras kind of all look the same. It's black, it makes my eyelashes black. It doesn't clump or flake too badly, and it doesn't stay sticky, which is a big complaint of mine with some other mascaras. Basically, I just need something to make my lashes black and not invisible. So. Real talk though, I don't recommend a lot of the fancy mascaras. I cannot stand Lancome's mascaras. I think that they stay kind of sticky and that really grosses me out. Okay, mascara is on. I am going to take some more of my NYX Jumbo Pencil in Milk and do my bottom waterlines with this. And then I'm going to take a little bit more of that mascara. I am going to scrape off a lot of it as I pull it out and just try and get as little on there as possible. And then tap that on to the bottom eyelashes. You're not really trying to make them look like anything, you're just trying to make them not look white. Alright, next step, we are going to do the lip paint. So I do a two-tone lip where the upper lip is black and has a little line going up into the nose, and then the bottom lip is normal. So for that, I use a black liquid lipstick that I can set down if I can find it. And I'm gonna follow more or less the same procedure I did for my nose, but just on my lip. Ta-da! So I'm going to take a little bit more of this, put it on the palette, and then I'm going to drop a line from here up to my nose to kind of create that separated shape that bunnies have where their like lip goes into their nose. And this is very hard because it is just supposed to be a straight line, and straight lines on human beings are really hard, so this is gonna require a lot of focus. I don't take it all the way up, usually doesn't need to go all the way up, but it's good, looks good. I got it from the front. This is a way better line than the last one. The last one I did was bad looking. This is Friday from Colourpop, and while their liquid lipsticks tend to set down pretty well, they will transfer a little bit. You can already see it starting to transfer a little bit when there's grease introduced, like grease paint. So I'm going to set it down with a little bit of translucent powder in the hopes that it will stay in place a little bit better, because the bottom lip is going to be a different color. I don't want any black there. Pick up just a little bit, tap off the extra. This is actually a very similar technique to what I do for my Princess Peach lip, but for different reasons. So for Princess Peach, I do it because the mattification helps hide the fact that I've just drawn directly over my Cupid's bow, and it's really obvious. Here, it's to help prevent transfer. I got a lot of the grease paint on my lower lip, so what I'm going to do is wipe it off with a little bit of a wet paper towel. And usually grease paint is pretty resistant to water, but here it's on my lip, which is like the easiest place to rub stuff off of. And it's already had a decent amount of wear. I don't have to worry about getting it all off. It's going to be a gradient lip, but I wanted to get the worst of it off where the black was blending. And then I am going to make a two-tone lip for my bottom lip, starting with a natural kind of nudish color and building out with a lipstick that I'm actually really excited about. So recently Shu Uemura did a collab with One Piece, and I managed to snag one of the lipsticks. It is a very bright red, but it makes really good for gradient lips, so I'm going to use that with this since this is a One Piece lip. I'm going to start by adding a little bit more grease paint down on the bottom of the lip. And just so you know, this will never dry. Until you wash it, there will be grease paint on this and it will come off on anything it touches. So, just fair warning on that one. And then we are going to take a little bit of the red and a lip brush because I don't want to get grease paint all over my fancy lipstick. And then we're just gonna start in the middle and create a little layer on the edge here. And then what we're gonna do is just take the brush and dip it down a little bit in the middle, create a shape. We're just gonna blend it out. And if you feel like you need more color on the inside edge, you just add a little bit more lipstick. Or if you feel like it is too bright, you just add a little bit more grease paint to the edge. If you want, you can also add another color in the middle there. I've got some kind of naturalish nude lips that you can use to help bridge the space between the two colors. And then I am going to take a little bit of that translucent powder here as well. This is a cream, so it's not going to set the same, but I am still going to go over the edges of it just to try and stem the tides of fate with the black lipstick a little bit. Next step is eyelashes, and I use some pretty big boys for this. These are the ones I'm going to be using today. I've got a couple that I like a lot. These are pretty good. I've also got these big thick boys and a couple others, but for this I think these are pretty good. They put a lot of emphasis on the middle of the eye, which when you're wanting to really open up your eyes are a good shape. So I am going to use some House of Lashes Lash Glue. This stuff is kind of my ride or die. If you get it to sit correctly and it dries correctly and you get it on there, this stuff will hold all day, no questions asked. The only trick is getting the hang of it and using it right, which to this day I still sometimes have issues with, but this has led to full days of cons versus other eyelash glues, which have lifted up the edges like within a couple hours, which sucks. No one wants that. Couple tips about white face paint while we're waiting. I highly recommend shaving your face. I know that sounds kind of crazy, especially if you're not someone who normally grows facial hair, but the small amount of hair that grows around your lip area, even on ladies, grease paint will pick up on real bad, and especially once you're powdering it, it won't look very good. The smoother you can get your skin to start with, the better. There we go. Ta-da! Okay, so 2 things left. I got to do my eyebrows and then I have to paint my neck. So eyebrows are very easy. I wear bangs for this look so you can't hardly even see them. So pretty much all I do is I comb through them and then I plop a little bit of yellow in them just to help them match the wig slightly, and that's it, because you can't even see them most of the time, so it doesn't matter. So for this, I'm more or less just following the basic shape of my eyebrow. I do shave the edges of my eyebrows off. They are shorter than they naturally are, just in case anyone was wondering. I just kind of like them short. Honestly, shaving your eyebrows off is not nearly as scary as it seems like it is. They grow back pretty dang fast. I can shave my eyebrow off and have it back in like 2 months. I've never taken the plunge to fully shave them off, but never say never. I might one day. Eyebrows have been yellowified. And last step we're gonna do is painting my neck white. So for this, honestly for this whole process, I recommend you wear something that you can get on and off really easily without having it to like scrape over your head. Don't wear like a t-shirt. I am actually wearing the chemise that I made a couple videos back because it's got button shoulders and I can just pop this thing right off. I recommend either this or like a wrap dress or a robe, something really easy. We are going to take some white Mehron Paradise Paint and a brush. You can use a foundation brush for this, dealer's choice really. I use what is called a flawless airbrush brush that I got a million years ago from Sephora. It's a little bit fluffy. It helps emulsify the face paint better because you can't just add water and it's immediately good. You have to like kind of whip it into itself to get it to behave properly. The sun's really coming out now. I'm sorry if it's bright, but we're just going to take some water and the cap, dip our brush in it, and then swirl it around in this. You should honestly do this for like a minute. The more you beat it in, the better the pigment is gonna be, which is also one of the reasons why I like this brush in particular, because it kind of helps activate all of that. I am at this junction going to take off my cardigan because I feel like we're passing the point of no return. So basically I just need to paint my neck and then down to like here around my clavicle. Take this, it's gonna be cold. Edges, you can't really see the back of the neck because there's a collar, so I don't really worry about painting that. And then I'm actually going to take my sponge and blend out this top edge right under my chin so that it looks a little less obvious that there's 2 different products. And remember, people aren't gonna see a whole lot of this, so it doesn't really matter that much. I'm kind of hyping myself up about it, honestly. I am going to paint the earlobes of my ears white as well, just in case they peek out. It's gonna be less noticeable because I am gonna have rabbit ears on, and I prefer for it to not look like I have 2 different pairs of ears. That doesn't seem anatomically feasible. If I really want to hide my ears, I'll actually tuck them under the wig cap, but that is wildly uncomfortable, so I try not to do that. Now that that's done, I'm going to take some more of that e.l.f. powder, the translucent one, and I'm going to powder this as well because this stuff will also transfer. However, you can be a little bit less fussy about this. So I think I'm done. I think I've done everything I need to. So let's get out of this sunlight and let's see if you can get a little bit of a better look. I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it came out really good today, which is nice. I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it turned out pretty good. And I'll be back in just a minute once I have the full costume on. All right, I'm finished. I've got my ears and my wig and my costume on. I got my arm socks on and I'm ready to go. I am gonna go take a photo shoot now to get some photos of this because this is the first time I've had it all on together. I'm really excited. Let me show you some details of the costume. And they actually blend in really well together. I think they're pretty similar formulations. Similar. Sorry, my face got itchy, so I'm trying to very gently itch it with the sponge. Does anyone else just have their mouth hang open while they're blending? Just like I have a literal white highlighter from Becca. If I can get it open, my god. And then just go in and dab over the edge. Oh god, it's dripping. Oh, great googly moogly.